Welcome to With Love, The Chambers.
Where life, laughter, and lasting lessons meet.
We're The Chambers, a husband and wife navigating faith, family, and everything in between.
Here we share real stories, heartfelt conversations, and a whole lot of love. Because life isn't perfect, but God's grace sure is.
So pull up a seat, grab a cup of coffee, or go ahead and sip that tea, and join us for honest talks, laughs, and the wisdom we're learning along the way. This is With Love, The Chambers.
This episode of With Love, The Chambers was brought to you by the Vision Engineering Collective, where purpose meets strategy and vision comes to life. If you've been enjoying the stories, the laughs, and those deep life lessons, we invite you to support the show and help us keep the love flowing. Head over to www.coff.ee/withlovethechambers. Think of it like buying us a cup of coffee or two. As always, thank you for hanging with us. Now back to the show.
Welcome to this week's episode of With Love, The Chambers. I am Jamila Chambers here with the Vision Engineer himself, Rufus, and this is another With Love Wednesday. We are so thrilled to welcome you back to the platform. We appreciate you tuning into us each and every single week as we have these dynamic conversations. Now have the conversations with guests and invite you into the space. So if you haven't already, please like, please share. Please tag somebody who needs to listen to this podcast this week, who needs a moment to connect. This is an opportunity to do so. Welcome, Mr. Chambers, to the conversation. How are you, sir?
Doing all right. Coming off a very fruitful and productive week. Some ups and downs, but hey, here we are. Excited to have another conversation.
Excited to have another conversation, and we will talk about, once we get on the other side of this graduation season, all of the things that we are doing. We got a full itinerary for the next couple of weeks, which we bless God for. We are so joyful and joyous.
It's not too late to simplify some of these weeks now. We always have an opportunity to streamline.
There he goes.
Streamline.
You married a woman that's extra like guacamole. You know how guacamole just extra. You
ain't got to have it with every meal though. But that's what I have found. That's what I have found.
Don't need to have something extra at all times. I'm just saying. No. Well, that's why we got a full itinerary, y'all. So we'll be happy to tell y'all about that in the weeks to come. In this particular week, we wanted Shimon, that ought to give you a little preview as to what we're talking about today. But this particular week, oh my goodness, we are reflecting on Michael, the movie. It's been out for a couple weeks now. How many times? Collectively, we have watched it over 5 times. Collectively.
This is true.
Yes. And we have lots to say about it. And so if you haven't seen Michael the movie, well, guess what? It's already been spoiled for you if you turn on your television. If you've had any interactions in social media streets at all, you have had some sort of exposure to the movie, to the content, and we're going to discuss it as only Rufus and I can, and not only getting into the content of the movie itself, but our takeaways, some things that we learned, some things that really stuck with us, having been exposed to that story again through this 2026 lens. So before we get into all that, Rufus, first impressions, Michael, the movie.
You failed to mention the last name of the gentleman. I know that.
Well, the movie is just Michael.
But some people may not know. Maybe if you don't know, Michael is a brief biopic about the world-renowned Michael Jackson.
No, let's pause. If you didn't know what Michael I was talking about, I don't know if that's our audience. I don't know if that's our audience that wouldn't know which Michael. Maybe somebody else's audience. I'm not sure that's our audience.
Maybe that's my faith stretching out that our platform is that broad and diverse.
We're going to expand. We're going to expand to the person who don't know what Michael we talking about.
That's right.
I'm teasing.
Yeah, but Michael, the movie, it was special. It was special, I think, for so many reasons. And before we got into the movie, there was so much hype about what the movie was not. I feel like a lot of the press that we saw leading up to the official release of the movie was somewhat negative. You know, some people were saying, "Oh, this is going to be a lifetime. This is going to be like a lifetime movie," and well, we didn't learn anything new, and this just romanticized, you know, his life and this, that, and the other. So, kind of went in with all of that stuff in the backdrop. But you know, I will say that in the Chambers household in South Richmond, California.
Oh, well, now
in
wait a
the
minute. Now
in
wait a
the-
minute. Now wait a minute.
There you go.
Now wait a minute. Now
There
wait
you
a minute.
go.
We in South LA. We not in
Yeah.
South Richmond.
Well, I'm saying growing up.
Oh,
Yeah,
I
see,
see. I see.
I was trying to give context of how I grew up.
I see.
You
My
know,
bad,
y'all
bad.
trying to own a brother's whole life. You see that, husbands? You see that, husbands? They just go commandeer your whole life and soul from your body.
When did you live in South Richmond? When was that?
Growing up in the Chambers household.
Okay, got you.
At 612 South 52nd Street, Richmond, California.
Yes.
Michael Jackson and the Jacksons and the Jackson 5 were in heavy rotation. You know, 70s, 80s, 90s. I mean, you know, that music was literally a soundtrack,
Yes.
you know, for my upbringing. So I entered the movie and even entered this media buzz with so much of that context. You know, the family popping in a VHS, the first VHS tape my father bought in the 1980s with that brand new Zenith VCR, I believe it was a Zenith, was Motown 25. Large in part because of the Billie Jean debut performance. So again, there's so many memories of the Jacksons and Michael Jackson, you know, from my childhood. So obviously going into the movie, that was, you know, in my mind. And the movie was, I think they did a great job of capturing as many moments as they could in the time that they were allowed or that they allowed themselves. I think the movie run was, I don't know if it was 2 hours or 2 hours and 15 minutes or whatever. So they did what they could. And I also went into the movie with having seen The American Dream,
Yes.
the Jackson story, having seen multiple Michael Jackson documentaries, having seen multiple Michael Jackson news documentary. So again, I didn't go into the theater seeking new revelation, but I was pleased. You know, I feel like I did learn and glean some things. And I think one thing that I'm enjoying is seeing a new generation discover some of the treasure of his life and of his upbringing and of that catalog that is, I mean, I don't know if you stack his personal catalog up with his brother's catalog,
Sure.
it's just out of this world. So no, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it so much. I saw it a second time. And then I was supporting one of the play nephews. I saw it a third time, but that's a whole longer story that we don't have to get into. But for you, I mean, you grew up in Los Angeles.
Yes.
In the 70s and 80s, and that family was literally in Los Angeles. So what was some of your first kind of reactions, you know, to the movie, just the whole enchilada?
Well, you bring up such an interesting point. One of the things that we talk about that's a different dynamic with our children, Winter and Willow, versus how you and I were raised. We talk about how Gen Z and Gen Alpha in particular just have had their life so well documented.
Yes.
That not too many people that were boomers and Gen X in particular, and then certainly not the silent generation and those before had their lives as well documented as these kids do today.
Yes.
The exception to that is this Jackson family. And you just saying that, saying you pricked me in a different way with you just saying we have had so much exposure. And no one can forget the footage of Michael's first audition at Motown, singing a James Brown song.
Black and white footage.
Black and white footage going into the break with baby, baby, baby.
Striped t-shirt on.
T-shirt on.
Whole bodice on his head. Come on, somebody.
Right, we can recall. And there's not too many people, which we'll get into other things in the story. There's not too many people that are from that generation that have had their life so well documented and examined and talked about and put in front of the public in a way that Jackson family, and particularly Michael, because I'm just going to say Michael and assume you know who I'm talking about. But particularly the way that Michael had. So it's interesting. So me going into Michael the movie weekend.
Why don't you pause?
Yes.
And why don't you explain to the people what you wore to the first time you saw it? What was the attire?
That was
because you had on something.
Where I was going. Now, me myself, I wanted to show up prepared. Okay. Because again, I am truly a Michael Jackson fan. I had the privilege and benefit of attending that 1988 concert at the Forum with my mom, with my sister, and with my brother, the Bad Tour.
Bougie.
Listen.
Ooh, y'all black and bougie. Y'all was at the concert.
Was at the concert. In fact, so much so that I had to thank my mom. I'm so grateful she's still living. We're just coming out of Mother's Day weekend. I'm so, literally, I had to thank her because even now, having experienced that movie, going into understanding that really that was one of his first times touring solo without his brothers was that bad because he did not tour for Thriller. That's what they said in the movie. Anyway, y'all can fact check me.
No.
Rufus up there looking at me like,
yeah,
because he did not. He did not.
I thought you said 84.
No, it's 88.
80. Okay.
88.
Yes.
He did not tour for Thriller. So 88, the Bad album was the first time he toured solo, and not even realizing that was the first solo concert. And I want to say that those tickets, and we were not by any means on the floor or super close. We was in the building. And I want to say those tickets were like $30, like a piece back in 88. And I told my mom, I was like, you talking like Usher and Chris Brown ticket money now. You talking about, Beyonce ticket money in the times to say we were going to be anywhere in that building to experience that concert at any time. That was such an expense, for families. And so I'm so grateful to have done that. And I did to go see the movie what I did to go see the concert back then, which is I got dressed. And so you heard me say Rufus saw the movie 3 times. I saw it twice. However, I did dress all weekend. Yeah, we'll have to drop the picture in the chat. So
the guacamole.
Yes.
We're back to guacamole. We're back to guacamole.
Had on her extra because I don't understand anybody that's listening. I don't understand why you don't have a military style sweaters with the buttons down the front in your closet. I went and purchased nothing, by the way. So let me also start by saying I purchased nothing to dress for these days. This was all out of my personal closet. So I had on my military style sweater with the gold buttons down the front, as Michael would. I had on my MJ t-shirt, the original t-shirt from MJ, the musical, because we went to go see that as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I had on my MJ, the musical t-shirt. And then I had on my sequins, my sequins joggers, with my patent leather with the buckles, because see, Mike had, you know, when the sequin showed up, you didn't just have on any regular boots. So I had on my high top Nikes with the buckles and loops.
That's right.
And so they have a patent leather, shiny with some buttons and some straps, because that's how you have to. I don't understand who went to Michael any other way.
Well, I had on regular clothes.
Those were my regular clothes. I told you I didn't go buy nothing. Those were my regular
Friday clothes.
Those are my regular clothes out my regular closet, you know. And then I did a play on that. I had an event that Saturday, unrelated. So I did a play on that, wore a Michael outfit that Saturday. Kept some of those elements there. And then shout out to Actively Black. They not paying me to say nothing, not paying for any of this, but shout out to Actively Black. Had on my Actively Black Michael, because they got some licensed material, licensed
That's what the Sunday
attire.
Get Down was?
That was the Sunday Get Down. Yeah, with the MJ on the back, and then the jacket with the white cuff around the center, and then my MJ t-shirt, you know, because we had to be prepared for multiple days. This was not a joke. This was not a game. Okay. So you had to show up prepared. But with that being said, and we talked about how people showed up to the movie and the anticipation of the movie, what did that speak to you about? Because I wasn't the only one. Now, mind you.
Hold up. You didn't say what your takeaways was, your first takeaway. Give us one hot take.
Oh, my goodness.
When you left the theater that Friday, when we left the Inglewood Theater.
One hot take from the theater for sure was Michael is still a phenomenon. There's been so much about his legacy for really the last 18 years, 19 years since he's been passed. I'm not sure the math on that, but there's been so much of his legacy in particular that did not align with the Michael, you know, the artistry, the contribution to music, the change maker, like who he was. There's been so much of his legacy over the years, and we can certainly talk about that. And I know they're going to have part 2 to the movie, so we're going to have to get into that then as well. But I walked away feeling like he is still Mike. From the grave, he is still Mike. Like, who amasses that type of response? And you see the people in the anticipation, and I wasn't the only one dressed. It was all these people dressed up all around the world. It was, and I'm clear to say all around the world. So it was all these people responding all over the world, having this same engagement. And I said, Michael is still Michael. And I hadn't experienced that when he was living, and certainly having lived through the 70s and 80s and 90s. I experienced that phenomenon of having him as a living artist amongst us. But most of the young people, there's a whole generation that did not have that experience. Our youngest daughter is 18 years old, and she was born in 08. He passed in 09. So that's been 17 years since he's been passed. And so, you know, it is like she spent her whole life not understanding and just getting introduced to him vocally, to his music arrangements, she's just now getting into his catalog.
Well, with a deeper level of curiosity.
With
we had exposed her, but now it definitely, the movie just takes it to a deeper level.
Sure. But my question to you was, I wasn't the only one reacting and responding that way. So what did that speak to you to just see the anticipation of the people and to see people kind of respond to the movie in that way?
I think there were a number of factors at play. I think number one, I think globally there's a lot of tension and turmoil that's happening in the world.
Yes.
The Middle East is obviously, in the middle of a ceasefire, a war, a military conflict, whatever you want to call it. And that has really grabbed, a lot of the attention of people globally. And not just the war, but all of the narratives that surround the war. So a lot of us have been involuntarily pulled into the vortex of this propaganda machine. And I felt like this movie gave us a healthy outlet to distract ourselves from, and not only that war, but there's countless other critical social, economic, political issues that are happening in the United States and abroad. So I think, number one, it snatched our algorithms.
Yes.
And our algorithms needed to be snatched. And then I think, number two, sometimes we don't talk enough about how music can be a unifier. You know what I mean? It's, even when we look at the social plight in the United States, music played a tremendous role in unifying people across racial, social, economic lines, right? So again, his catalog then begins to grab people that think different from an ideological perspective. So again, his music and other music is a unifier, just like sports can be a unifier. You could have one football team and they got all these people, but they're unifying together. So I felt like that was something else. And I think the other thing that was at play is the legacy of Michael Jackson has been played with for so long. You think about, his, the estate has had to sit idly by, and I won't say idly by, but they have had to sit and watch his legacy, the legacy of their family, be written and rewritten by all these different people. Some of them lying, some of them telling half truths. And I felt like the fans had to live through that and then reconsider who he was as a musician, as an artist, as a man, as a father, as a son, as a brother, etc. And I feel like because the estate was telling this story, it gave fans a healthy opportunity to re-engage. And I think that was some of what was at play. I mean, I saw they had footage in Brazil, and I believe that some of the Brazilians were watching the movie in like a open air. It wasn't an auditorium. It was
kind of like the Hollywood Bowl, an open air.
Yeah, an open air amphitheater. And I mean, they were sitting up there singing, they were crying, and it was a moment. And I know some of the super deep people that may be listening may go to, that's idolizing. And some of these fanatics have, said that he was, a Satanist, or, he was operating under demonic influence and this, that, and the other. And we could have that conversation separately, but it resonated with a lot of people. Because that music, I mean, it was even something as subtle as a detail in the movie that when they started selling the Jackson 5 45-inch, records, the sleeve said "The Sound of Young America," and I was like, that was marketing genius. By Motown. Number one, you couldn't have no black faces on the sleeve.
Correct.
But it was making a statement that these young boys that are singing, they represent a sound of young America. And that was powerful. You know what I mean? Because you and I know part of that sound and that voice created a normalization of people in his ethnicity. If we can sing for you, we could sit at the lunchroom counter.
Sure.
It's going to be okay.
Sure.
You know what I mean? But but back to my point, I didn't got off in my social economic thing, but I think again, the fans needed a healthy remembrance.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. A healthy remembrance. And, we've all heard the allegations about child abuse, sexual abuse, these civil lawsuits. But you and I were adults.
Yes.
And let me go to my fact sheet here. We were grown adults when he was tried not only on criminal charges, okay, but also federal charges. And he was found not guilty on the criminal charges, because remember, that was televised. That was in 2005. Yes, it was, all the hype.
Yes.
And, they put him through a full investigation and trial.
Yes.
And then it says on the federal, there were multiple FBI reviews between the years of 1992 and 2005, and no federal charges. This says no federal charges were charged. So it's, and again, we weren't there. We don't know. But from my memory and from these facts, he was, he got to pass whatever. Well, I'm saying
over 15 years being investigated by the Fed and no charges.
Exactly. So again, and I just say that to say, for those that are disappointed that the criminal charges were not included in the film, hey, there will be a part 2, and maybe they will be included, maybe not. This only went up to 1988. But in watching the film, the way his nephew Jafar portrayed his humanity, I felt like it did unlock a different understanding of this. And again, we saw, and I know I'm skipping around, but when we watch The American Dream, we were younger, so our understanding was younger. Watching it now, watching this movie now through our level of maturation, it just hit different. Just being put into this music industry machine at such a young age and not really being able to, have buddies over to spend the night, or playing, outside in the yard, just with your friends. I mean, you were literally performing in nightclubs and traveling and recording music at such a young age. So then watching him as a man try and live out his childhood to a certain extent, and one of our mentors, Elder Kathy Moffitt, what does she say? She always says that a person will have their childhood
at some point. Yes.
So, but back to the bigger point, we needed this moment. And I guess for you, Jamila, again, like we said, we've lived.
Yes.
What was something you felt like you learned, or something that made you, really consider while you were in that theater?
The power of Black men in his life. He had so many, I won't say everybody, when we had the opportunity, and it left so much out about all the people that influenced him, and it touched on his musical influences, and he did not have really gender or color considerations in his influences. Really, I mean, everybody from a Fred Astaire to a Charlie Chaplin to a James Brown. He was a sponge.
Jackie Wilson.
Yes, Jackie Wilson. Sponge of just artists and across genres and across silent films and dancers and musicians. And he was just a sponge of it all. But when you talk about the men that they highlighted in the film, and we have to talk about Joseph Jackson. And then you had Berry Gordy, Quincy Jones, and his long-term bodyguard, and father figure, the gentleman Bill, and we'll have to look up his last name. But when those were 4 Black men in particular that were highlighted and whose names were amplified in this film.
Bill Bray.
Bill Bray, thank you. And Mr. Bray had a powerful role, and that was my first introduction to Mr. Bray. So I said we all need a Bill Bray. We all need to be praying that we get a Bill Bray in our lives.
Kids need a Bill Bray.
Yeah, you're not kidding. But I say all that to say, when I looked at the impact that those 4 Black men made on Michael's life, the trajectory of his family's life, on his brothers, because they were a package for so long and so much of this film. And I think almost in equal measure talked about the days he was with the Jacksons and what he did with his family and his family dynamic. In the context of the Jacksons, a lot of criticism is, well, Janet wasn't in it and Rebe wasn't in it and that sort of thing. But it was really in the context of the Jacksons. So I think they handled that tastefully.
Yes.
Some of the parts that they just didn't want to include, because it's 9 siblings, 9 children altogether.
Family.
That's a huge family and a lot of
time to do character development.
Yes, a lot of oh my. And Janet, arguably the second most famous Jackson. And when we say the second, when your brother's in the stratosphere and your brother's the sun and you the moon. I mean, they was both just out there. Iconic. Janet is a iconic performer in her own right. So I was just blown away and impacted so greatly by the role that those 4 men played in his life at critical moments. Joseph with having the initial vision. Let's just say that. let's just give.
Yeah, let's pause.
Let's pause.
Because
complicated.
Well, I don't know.
Joseph.
I don't even know if you say complicated because
he was straightforward. But
because
yes, go
ahead. This is what I want you to say. You and I grew up in a different generation.
We did.
Than the current generation.
Yes.
So when you are watching how Joe Jackson was depicted, not only in Michael, but also in American Dream, what were your thoughts? What you felt like, oh, okay. And it was like, that's too much. Like, where did you feel like there was a line?
So it's interesting. It's interesting. First of all, we're Black. You and I are Black people.
Oh, yeah,
and we were raised. Yeah, they might not know. Well, because we're expanding our audience.
There you go.
And you and I were raised by parents who are from that same generation as Joe Jackson. And what I mean by that is that our parents are Joe Jackson's contemporaries. Born about the same time, roughly, had the same working class kind of upbringing, understanding. We have so much going on in the world, but I mean, Michael Jackson was born before the Civil Rights Act of 1965 was passed, so Black people couldn't even vote. And so that concept of
it's currently being debated right now.
Which is currently being debated right now. Another one of those things that's going on in the world. But understanding what it's like to raise a family of size. My dad is one of 7 coming out of Colonia in Oxnard, California, out the projects, and trying to keep, in my dad's case, 7 children, and in the Jackson's case, 9 children off the streets, off drugs.
See, talk about
focused,
about it.
Not incarcerated. Just it was in the pressure of doing that. It is almost unheard of that all 9, and there was 10 total children, one lost in infancy, but all 9 of those children didn't end up, not a one of those children ended up gang life, streets.
Come on.
The elements and the the systematic things that were designed to keep them
Yes.
down.
Yes.
And so, so when you say, well, what's my initial reaction? I feel like I understand him in that context.
Yes.
I feel like I understand.
Yes.
I also have a father that was the product of that.
Yes.
My dad had the opportunity to go to college.
He got some testimony.
Yes, yes. Yeah, he does.
With his father.
Yes.
But
Yes, I'm not going to tell my dad's story, but it has some, let's just say, similar encounters with my grandpa Eddie and just the way that that discipline and the way those conversations were had, but at the same time, you can't argue with the results, is what I'm saying. I got an uncle that's a dentist and one that went on to be an attorney and a public defender. And my father had a long career in business, and youngest brother had a beautiful career in social work and a doctorate degree and all these things, and these daughters that went on to do these wonderful things. And so when you talk about, again, the pressure of the time and what you're trying to take your kids out of, it is so hard to put that in a 2026 concept. There was no timeout. There was no, what do we call it now? Performance medals and participation certificates and things of that nature. It is so hard. We tell our own children that they could not have grown up in the 90s. Like that would have been too difficult for them to be able to do, let alone grow up and be a child in the 50s and in the 60s.
That's a whole.
And so that's a different thing altogether. It
is.
And so, and what I mean by when I initially said that conversation is complex, it's complex because we're trying to put that in a 2026 context, and you just can't. And I think that fair to say. Does that currency spin today? No, but the world is different today.
Yeah.
The world is different today.
It is.
He said, I am getting those kids out of Gary in one piece.
That's right.
And my children are going to change the world.
Yeah.
And they in fact did. And that was due to his vision.
Yes.
And you could talk about the how and the why, but you can't argue with his what.
Yeah.
He was very clear about what he was going to do with those children. And that is what was accomplished well beyond. Michael's been dead 17 years. Joe's been dead a number of years, well beyond both of their lifetimes. We were talking about that decision at a kitchen table in Gary, Indiana, in a little 2-room house that's now a museum. That house is a museum.
That's heavy.
So that. And then you talk about the next visionary, Berry Gordy.
Mm-hmm.
You talked about the marketing genius of Motown and the Motown machine and the polish and the poise of the artist and the musicianship that came out of that and the writing, and the world got introduced to a Smokey Robinson, to a Stevie Wonder, to a Marvin Gaye, Diana Ross, the Boss, and the Supreme. Like you cannot ever measure the impact, the Jackson 5 being part of that impact, but the impact of that. So that was another visionary that needed to take it to another level. And then you had Quincy Jones, a third visionary that needed to take Michael's sound to the next level, his creativity to the next level. It's almost like you can see these batons being passed,
That's right.
in his life from one visionary to another. And then to have someone there almost from the beginning, like Mr. Bray, who was there and was just 100% focused and said, I don't want nothing from you. I don't want what the world wants from you. I can be an anchor for you, and just a bit of some grounding when the world is trying to blow you down. And we don't always get to see Black men portrayed in those ways and get to demonstrate their creativity in those ways and get to talk about the ways that Black men in particular have changed the world, and Michael being a Black man himself, have changed the world. That was it. And if y'all have not found this clip, Jafar got asked a similar question on the red carpet. Jafar Jackson, who played his son in the movie, got asked, what's one thing that you think people would be surprised to know about your uncle, or do you think that's most misunderstood about your uncle that you think would be a surprise, for the viewers of the film to know? And what he said was, my uncle was a proud Black man. And I think people would be surprised and need to understand his story in that context.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned race a little bit earlier, kind of got into that line, and that story and that throughput and that conversation around race came up a couple of times in the movie. They didn't really go there as hard and as edgy in the Motown days and talking about how they got the sound in front of a diverse audience of children. But that MTV scene, when there was the discussion around putting Michael's short films, as he referred to them, we call them music videos. I'm corrected. Putting his short films on MTV, particularly Billie Jean, in that conversation around, I will not be segregated or put in the back of the bus. Talk about that display and that scene with getting Michael's short movie and his music videos on MTV.
Yeah, I think they were brilliant to include that scene in the movie because, again, as of this recording, I believe, the movie has grossed over $500 million globally, which is, something pretty amazing. Mm-hmm. But to include that in the movie to show in the 1980s mm-hmm. and with the cachet. Again, we're not talking about getting Rick Ross on MTV. We're mm-hmm. not talking about, Future or, Nipsey Hussle. No, we're talking about Michael Jackson mm-hmm. being excluded from a new network called MTV. It's when you think about it, it sounds like it's insane. Mm-hmm. That they wouldn't want his audience to participate in the expansion mm-hmm. of that network, but it showed the progress that had been made, but also the progress that had not yet been made. Mm-hmm.
And this was the 80s.
This was the 80s after Thriller had already been released, I believe. Yeah, the album was already out. So it's like it's selling. I mean, so I think, again, if we just zoom in mm-hmm. to that scene, we see the racial construct that was still happening in mm-hmm. the 1980s. And, you think about the content of the album, nothing of the album was controversial mm-hmm. or, pose some societal threat. Because, we're hip hop heads, so we understood some of those battles that needed to be fought. But Michael Jackson, mm-hmm. Talking about Beat It and mm-hmm. talking about Billie Jean is not my mm-hmm. lover mm-hmm. is controversy, but I think, again, when you zoom in and a lot of this, it's fear, mm-hmm. you know what I mean? And that is the thing. When the gentleman from CBS Records called mm-hmm. MTV, there had to have been some element of fear attached to the decision. And that fear is still being contemplated and coerced today. Okay. And again, I'm not trying to get off in my stuff right now, but that scene, it illustrated the struggle, you know, and to Jafar's point, Michael was clearly a proud Black man, as he should be. But not only being a proud Black man, but he desired to be accepted, or at least his artistry and his music be accepted in mainstream. And, you know, the funny part is, and, you know, we can just be messy for a few moments. Some of the racial categorization of music is still present today.
Oh, absolutely.
Even in the gospel.
Yes.
Well, gospel versus Christian. If you go to Apple Music right now and you have two genres of music, right? So you'll see Christian. If you pull up Christian, who comes up? Stephanie Stanley, who I'm not familiar with. But then if I go back to my icon and I go to gospel, it'll be a person of color. Oh, you see how gospel's a little further down.
Yes, it's much further. You still
wow, I'm still looking for gospel here. Maybe I missed it. Maybe that. Oh, you know what? Maybe I missed it. Let me go back. Oh, there he is. Kirk Franklin.
Yes, Kirk
Franklin. So Kirk Franklin is gospel.
Yes.
But Chris Tomlin
is Christian. Yes.
So same Jesus, but the Jesus has different musical expression. So even in 2026, on this Apple musical platform, there's still racial walls that exist, you know? So, but I'm grateful that him and his team fought that battle.
Yes.
Won that battle. And you and I know had some great MTV memories. Fab Five Freddy.
I say Yo MTV.
Yeah, Yo MTV Raps.
Yes.
And I mean, again, you know, music and genres were distributed, and we can argue about, you know, hip hop and its demise to different, you know, we can get into that conversation, but I'm grateful that the battle was fought. And I don't even know, is MTV still?
You know what? MTV is still around, but let me tell you something. I feel like music videos and content between YouTube and just other platforms and other streaming platforms, I think just the content is so diluted now. And MTV shows a lot of movies, and other content has really gotten away from the true music video format. And then you and I were at your mom's house in the Bay Area a couple weeks ago, and they have MTV Classic now, which is the show. I know, because your mom still got cable. She old school. She still got cable. And so it said MTV Classic, so it just shows music videos. So I went to click on that. You got to pay for it. So regular MTV, which used to be music video television. That's what the M stands for. Music video television, or music television, music TV. All they showed back in the day, 24/7, was music videos with a little bit of DJing in there and a little bit of interlude in there. Now it's gone to a whole different content format. And if you want to get back to that original format, you got to pay for it.
Yeah.
Wild.
Yeah. Yeah. So at this point, we could talk about this for
clearly
3 hours here.
Clearly.
This is my question to you, to our listeners who have children. What is one, come on, Dream Releaser, what is one theme that a child or emerging young adult can take from this man's legacy? What is a theme? What can be extracted from that?
Oh my
movie?
goodness. Oh my goodness. The first thing that came to my mind was discipline, and not the physical Joe Jackson discipline that I'm talking about, but he was disciplined up until the end. I'll have to link it, but I wrote a piece on the last documentary that Michael did called This Is It, which was the name of the tour. If you haven't seen the This Is It documentary, you can check that out on streaming platforms as well. And I was amazed by the level of discipline and rehearsal he had at that point. This was the end of that man's life. He was rehearsing songs from the Motown days as if he hadn't been singing those same songs for 40 or 45 years. You and I get fatigued and frustrated when we have to do things 2 times, 10 times, 20 times. He's sung those songs thousands of times, tens of thousands of times. And it was the same amount of discipline. People always say, I want to do what it takes to get wherever it takes, until doing what it takes costs them more than they want to pay or takes longer than they thought it was going to take. I mean, but that level of discipline is something that I will always take away. Being a continual student, you saw Michael being very young, watching black and whites and watching movies with his mom in the film and learning from those greats. And then you saw him in scenes when he was doing Beat It, learning from street dancers and those that were, kind of in the clubs and in community spaces. Now I'm saying community spaces, but they was gangbangers, but in community spaces. But you saw him just learning from everyone. What's the movement? What's the sound? What's next? What's the next thing? You never saw him get pigeonholed into the last great thing he did. Somebody like you said, a cachet like Michael Jackson should have been able to hang it up with what he was doing with his brothers. But what did he say in Motown 25? I like those old songs, but I especially like the new songs.
That's right.
And I think he had a posture of that going forward. I especially like the new songs. And I think the last part about it was always about team. And as great, and we say this all the time about why every elite athlete needs a coach and why every person that we have seen do something great talks about all the people that help them do something great. Nothing happens in a vacuum. And so Michael's talent needed a Quincy, needed a Berry Gordy before him, needed a Suzanne DePass who went found him for him for Berry Gordy, needed all of these people to come alongside. And you will see, especially now, musician after musician, producers from a Teddy Riley on down, talking a Dark Child, right? Talking about even working with Michael later on in his career with the level of intensity and discipline and curiosity coming into the studio brand new. You've been doing that since you was 5. Rodney Darkchild Jenkins wasn't even born when Michael was Michael. But when Michael stepped into the studio with Darkchild, he was given the same amount of intensity, that same amount of discipline, that same amount of curiosity, that same amount of drive as he was like it was day one. And that type of passion, that type of focus, that type of mental fortitude, and that type of discipline is something that anybody listening, no matter what it is that we all desire to do, is something that we can learn from.
Absolutely. No, that's absolutely good old discipline.
Good old discipline.
It goes back to the basics. And I do, I think that's a great theme, that the listeners can try and lean into,
yes,
including their children, their grandchildren, et cetera, because I feel like, that is something that this generation certainly needs.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like, kind of what we were talking about earlier about the whole Joe Jackson phenomenon, I feel like he understood what that discipline could produce.
Yes.
And I feel like now we're living in an age where obedience is so optional across the board. You know what I mean? We just make everything optional. Sometimes maybe if I feel like it, et cetera. And some people, that is the results that they're getting. They're getting optional success or not so optional success.
Sure.
But wow, this is there's so much to be said.
Mm-hmm.
So much to be said. And like you said, maybe when they drop episode, the second installment, maybe we'll come back.
Yes, of
maybe
course.
do a whole series, a short series.
Maybe we'll come back.
You
I gotta
know.
get another outfit.
Oh, Lord. You probably already ordered something.
What I'm going into the scene, Michael.
You. But yeah, I mean, what a legacy. This statistic says the equivalent of over 357 million records sold worldwide,
Wow.
which is, just so phenomenal.
Wow.
And again, this is when you had to go into the record store
Yes.
and purchase
Yes.
a
Yes.
vinyl, or purchase
Yes.
a cassette,
Yes.
purchase a CD.
Yes.
So certainly that is just amazing. But with that, audience, we are going to land the plane. We realize we could talk about this for quite some time because, as we mentioned earlier, his legacy, his catalog is really a soundtrack, for our very lives.
Yes.
We realize that Michael Jackson may not be your cup of tea, musically or otherwise, but it has been, for us, in our childhoods and,
Yes.
and just even the legacy, of our households that we grew up in. So with that, feel free to hit the share button, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. If this conversation blessed you or you feel like it may bless someone that help us in getting the word out. This is With Love, the Chambers, and we are committed to continue to make content that matters, content that brings you laughter, that brings you joy, that brings you value. And that is what we're committed to do. And that is what we're going to continue to do. So with that, I'm going to sign off. Hope you have a wonderful day. And we'll see you again on this same channel real soon. God bless.
This episode of With Love, The Chambers was brought to you by the Vision Engineering Collective, where purpose meets strategy and vision comes to life. If you've been enjoying the stories, the laughs, and those deep life lessons, we invite you to support the show and help us keep the love flowing. Head over to www.cough.ee/withlovethechambers. Think of it like buying us a cup of coffee or two. As always, thank you for hanging with us. We'll see you next time. With Love, The Chambers.
That's a wrap for today's episode of With Love, the Chambers.
We hope you laughed, learned, and felt encouraged along the way.
If you enjoyed this conversation, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share with someone who needs a little love and wisdom today.
You can also connect with us online on all social media platforms at Rufus Chambers Online and at Jamila Chambers. We'd love to hear from you.
Until next time,
Keep living, keep laughing, and keep learning with Love, the Chambers.